just wait for the recording to begin. So, wonderful. Thank you very much. I am very honored to be here. And I would like, first of all, to say sawatika to all those of you who speak Thai, and swakom to all those of you who speak Khmer. And a strong, heartfelt welcome to all of those of you who speak English. Um, it's a real honor to have been asked to speak on this particular theme and to be here with you this evening. Just before I begin to speak properly, I would be very happy if I could see as many of you as possible. So, as a personal favor to myself, if your internet connection allows it, it would be wonderful if you could have your camera open and I could see you better. I would be very happy about that. Thank you very much for considering that. And I will now spotlight my video and we will get started. So, I was asked by Dulyapat School, by the Threefold Academy, how one would respond to the belligerent atmosphere created by the recent conflicts between Thailand and Cambodia, because there are many Khmer people living in Thailand, and of course, on a human level, there is a close relationship between people in the two countries. Although this conflict has not been happening on a large scale, I think it has opened up doors to those who want to exploit uncertainties and prejudices, and who might benefit from creating fear in the people in both countries. None of us are free when we are afraid. Guarding ourselves against danger always comes first. It takes precedence over any social, academic, creative concerns we might have. First and foremost, we want to defend ourselves against what seems to be attacking us. But a world free from fear, free from threat, is a utopia. It's something that we wish for, something that we may even work towards, but it's not something that we should assume is within our possibility to achieve. Fear, justified or manufactured, is a reality in this world into which our children are growing. So the question I would like to address with you today is, given that this is inescapable, how can we help these children develop resilience and confidence to not be paralyzed by the challenges that they will have to face, and at the same time to preserve their capacity to have compassion for others? Abinpon, in her introduction just now, used the word empathy. And for about 100 years, empathy has been a concept in psychology, which has been important to understand each other. I can't really do anything for you until I understand what your needs are, and I can't understand your needs until I know you. Which is why I gave this title a subtitle which said me in you, or you in me. However, that in itself is not yet an action. It's an ambition, it's a precondition for an action, and the action that follows empathy is compassion. And compassion requires more activity. Once I feel compassionate about something, I need to act. Empathy helps my understanding, compassion inspires my action, and I will return to this in a little while. I will start sharing my screen with you for a little while, and then I will also take the screen share away again. And after an introductory few minutes, I will ask you also to get into a short conversation with each other, and then later on in this seminar, a longer conversation. And although I will give you something of a question to talk about, this is not by way of a training. This is a conversation between people who meet because they share a common interest. So don't worry about having to fulfill certain expectations that would in any way come from me. This is your meeting, and I'm hoping to give you space as well as to give you information and something new to consider. So let us begin. I do believe that educating our children for peace, for their ability to embrace this peaceful being as an attitude, is a real challenge for us. And it's partly because we have to reinvent the way we think about things in order to be able to do that. Let us have a look first at how children enter the world that we have created for them. Those of you who have worked with me on teaching will remember that I refer to curriculum, the word curriculum, as everything that educates the child. Not just the kind of content lists that you will find in books that tell teachers what to teach, but everything that a child meets actually works educationally on that child. And to make it a little clearer what I'm talking about, I will already stop the share here and share a true story with you. This is taken from the biography of an American writer. Her name is Audre Lorde. And what she describes here takes place in the late 1960s or early 1970s in New York. And it is almost her first childhood experience. At the time when this happened, this incident, she was maybe about 3 or 4 years old, not older than that. This is what her recollection is. The subway train to Harlem. I clutch my mother's sleeve, her arms full of shopping bags, Christmas heavy. The wet smell of winter clothes. The train is lurching. My mother spots an empty seat. She pushes my little snowsuited body down. On one side of me, a man reading a paper. On the other side, a woman in a fur hat staring at me. Her mouth twitches as she stares, and then her gaze drops down, pulling mine with it. Her leather-gloved hand plucks at the line where my new blue snow pants and her sleek fur coat meet. She jerks her coat close to her. I look. I do not see whatever terrible thing she is seeing on the seat between us. Probably a roach. But she has communicated her horror to me. It must be something very bad from the way she is looking. So I pull my snowsuit closer to me, also away from it. When I look up, the woman is still staring at me. Her nose holes and eyes huge. And suddenly I realize there is nothing crawling on the seat between us. It is me she does not want her coat to touch. The fur brushes my face as she stands with a shudder and holds on to the strap in the speeding train. Born and bred a New York City child, I quickly slide over to make room for my mother to sit down. No word has been spoken. I'm afraid to say anything to my mother because I don't know what I have done. I look at the side of my snow pants secretly. is there something on them? Something is going on here I do not understand, but I will never forget it. Her eyes, the flared nostrils, the hate. So it may be that as modern adults, maybe because of our own experiences, we have already guessed what Audrey is not realizing at this moment. That what she is experiencing here is her first encounter with racism, because Audrey is black. Of course, up to now, she already knew the color of her skin. She also already knew that her skin has not the same color as everybody else's. But for the first time, she's having an encounter where that is a problem. So she's being woken up to this situation, although she cannot understand yet what is going on. And I would like you to imagine what might happen next. So what I'm about to say does not come from Audre Lorde's book. This is me trying to imagine what might be coming next. So let us assume that Audrey has a good relationship to her mother, and that in the evening, when her mother takes her to bed, Audrey asks her, "Mother, why did that woman look at me in that way?" And her mother now has the duty to educate her 3-year-old child about racism. Maybe some of you have had to do that with your children when they were this young. What do you say to a child like this? You have options, don't you? You could lie. You could say, "I don't know what was the matter with that woman." Or you could say, "There was some dirt, but you didn't see it." But even if you delay your response, at some point, you will have to tell Audrey about racist people. She needs that information because this is the world she's growing into. And she will also need to understand that racism is not her problem, but the problem that the racists have created. So Audrey now has been educated. This encounter in the subway was part of her curriculum. Picture the next day. The mother is going again on the subway with Audrey at her hand. They're going into the same train, and there is again a free seat, and the same woman is sitting there next to it. What do you think Audrey will do when her mother says, "Look, there's a free seat"? Will Audrey choose to sit in that seat? I think she won't want to. Her mother might say, "Come on, sit down." And Audrey will refuse. Why? Because of the way she felt the day before. Now, she does not understand the concept of racism. She can't be helped by understanding the rights and wrongs of it, but she knows how she felt yesterday, and she does not want to feel that way again. In fact, it doesn't even have to be the same woman. Let's say a completely different woman sits there who is also white, also old, and is also wearing a fur coat. And she might be very kind. And again, Audrey will not want to sit next to her because she has now been educated purely through the way she felt. Let's spin it a little bit further. Let's imagine that Audrey's mother is a choleric person who now goes and confronts the old white woman and says to her, "Do you know how you made my child feel yesterday? Do you have any idea how horrible you are?" And now I'd like you to imagine to have empathy with that woman. What might the white old racist woman say in her defense? Would it not be entirely reasonable of her to say, "But I didn't do anything. I was brought up this way. I can't be next to black people. It makes me feel frightened and unpleasant. But I didn't do anything bad to your child. I did not say to her she wasn't allowed to sit there. I did not say any bad words. I did not behave aggressively. All I did was I stood up. In fact, with a modern 21st century psychological language, with a Gen Z phrase, we might say this woman was exercising self-care. She was looking after her needs. And can you sense, if you have empathy with her, she has every right to say, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I didn't behave in a racist way. And what she says is logical until one point is reached. She is looking at it from her point of view. What she fails to do is to look at it from the child's point of view, because she was part of Audrey's curriculum. Right now, she educated the child without realizing that she was educating the child. And once we realize that the way we behave in the environment of the child will have an effect, everything changes. It's no longer about whether we are right or whether we are wrong. It's about how we are being perceived and what impact we are having. Let me bring back the screen share. So I shared this phrase with you a moment ago. Everything is curriculum. Whatever happens in a child's environment teaches the child how to behave. Why? Because the child has a certain attitude to the world. And in his introduction to World of Education, Rudolf Steiner characterizes that attitude with a certain sentence. He says, for the young child, the law is that the world is good. How can it be otherwise? I come into the world and I inherit this. It must be good. Why else would I be here? So there is a naive, built-in trust that this child brings to the world. And this is how it is characterized. The world is good. And if racist people make the rules, then I will need to learn the rules and I need to accept the rules as well. I need to be able to fit into that. And so unknowingly, somebody who has an experience like Audrey becomes, puts herself into a position of maintaining an unjust, unfair, inhuman reality. She can't do anything about it. She's much too young. She has no agency. Who can do something about it? Well, the answer to that question is not difficult. The people who are responsible for the curriculum. And I'm, of course, particularly want to welcome the colleagues who are here, my colleagues from Phnom Penh, from Gecko Garden School. You know what I'm talking about because you don't teach. You are around the children. And when I say you don't teach, I don't mean that you're lazy. I mean, you understand that when you work with young children, it's not the things you say. It's not the things you make children do that have a real effect. It's the environment you create around the children. Because the children live and learn through imitation. They look so carefully. Look at the little girl in the picture. What do you think she might be looking at? I think next to the little girl is an adult who is doing something with her hands. Maybe she is knitting. Maybe she's doing a finger game, but look at how carefully the little girl is observing what the adult is doing and how, without her being aware of it, her fingers are doing the same. And for me, this is a tremendous call for responsibility for the adult. If I know that I am being perceived in this way, it gives me a huge responsibility. Yeah. And think of that as a parent, as an uncle or an aunt, as well as a teacher. You are your child's curriculum. Not the only part, but part of the part of your child's curriculum. So, what is my framework for being the kind of person that children need? I know many of you are here because you already have a relationship to Waldorf schools. But if you don't worry about it. I'm going to give you, without any particular jargon, 3 important aims that Waldorf education has. But I think they can be the aims of any kind of education. Inside school, outside school, through friends and parents, as well as through institutions. I think the um, the first thing I need to understand with the help of my education is who I am. We use the word resilience often to describe our ability to ward off, to defend ourselves against unpleasant or dangerous influences, like illnesses, for example. But I think there's more to it than that. Do I know what is in my interest and what isn't? Can I make a judgment on what is good for me and what is bad for me? In order to do that, I need to understand who I am. And my education needs to give me that information. So this is what I call resilience. Yeah? I become myself and I know myself thanks to my education. Opposite that is my ability to understand that other people are like me, even though they are not like me. What I mean by that is nobody's exactly like I am, but we have the same rights and we have the same expectations of life. We want to be happy. We want to be fulfilled. We want to know ourselves. And compassion means that I have understood the idea of that and I make space for those people. Yeah. The classic example of that is that when I come to the airport and I'm late for my flight, and there are 5 people standing in front of me in the queue, that I don't go past them and say, well, I'm more important because I really need to be on that flight. Nobody really does that, do they? People stand in line and it might make them more stressed, it might make them more nervous, but everybody has a right to be in that line. And because we understand that of each other, most of us really respect that kind of system. Yeah. So this is a very simple example of exercising compassion. And the important element in the middle between those two, where resilience and compassion meet each other, this is where I have to have what you might call sovereignty. I've called it confidence here. I make the decisions. I don't wait for somebody else to tell me what to do. I can balance my own interest with the space I create for other people. And wouldn't it be wonderful if the people who come out of schools can do that? They're not too shy and they're not too selfish. This is really what we're trying to achieve with the education that we provide. And at this point, I would like to pause for a moment in my presentation, but also pause with the screen share, because by now there are 75 of you here, and it would be really useful if you could tell somebody in a small group why you are here. What brings you to this place? Why are you spending 2 hours of your Friday evening in a seminar on peace education? What is your questions? What have you brought? I can't promise you an answer, but it would be good if in the act of speaking about it, that you could make it clear to yourself. What is your motivation? So is one of the organizing teams from the academy running the breakout rooms? Yes, good. So in this case, I hand over to you. And I may think maybe groups of 5 or 6 would be good. I would love it if all of you could go. And if you're just driving a car and you can't participate, then don't worry about it. Um, but it's not a difficult task you have to solve. Just tell the other people why you're here. And we take maybe about 8 minutes for you to do that so that everybody can get a moment to speak. Thank you. Oh, I see there's another 60 minutes. So I'll stop the recording
Another
again.
system.
So welcome back, everybody. I hope this was good for you to meet people and hear from them what brought them here. In what follows, I would like to take you through some practical examples of the kind of work that we could do in school to facilitate what we might call peace education, but also to tell you some more stories, real stories of people with real experiences. I would like to share with you something about the very first day of school. I'm just going to show you a picture. Give me a moment. Here we are. Now, this is quite special in world of education, I think. I assume that in most cultures, most children, when they go to school, don't just go and sit at a table. There's going to be an element of celebration, of formality, and in most world of school around the world, in all sorts of different cultures, it involves flowers and a gateway or a bridge, something of an image that helps the child arrive in the school. So you could call this moment an I moment. The child is being recognized as an individual. Each child individually greets their teacher. And the teacher says, I see you. And this important moment of I have arrived is then followed by what I would like to call a we moment. A moment where already within half an hour of stepping onto the stage and through that flowery gate, the community aspect is being emphasized. When it was my turn to welcome a first grade class, I told them half a story in front of the whole school. And then I said to them, now we're going to go back to our classroom for the very first time from the assembly. And there I will tell you the rest of the story. So we walked out of the assembly hall. And as we came into the lobby of the building, we stood in front of a doorway. And that door was a self-closing door, a door with a swinging mechanism. And I turned back to the children and said, now you're going to learn your first lesson. Whenever we come to a door like this, I will open the door at the front and I will not let go until the hand of the first child behind me is on that door. And then I will literally hand over the door to the child, and then I will go through, and then the child will repeat what I've done. And so we all go through the door and everybody keeps it open for the person behind them. And now we will practice that for the first time. In English, that kind of attitude would be called consideration. It's a considerate thing to do, to hold open the door for the person behind me. In German, this has a beautiful word and the word is Rücksicht, which translates literally as looking behind me. The German word for consideration is to look behind me. And this is what, of course, what I have to do when my hand is on the door. Maybe I'm the last person, I don't know. But I won't find out until I look behind me and then I can see, oh, somebody is coming. And so I wait until that person can take the door from me. It's not a big thing. And I don't explain to the children that this is a metaphor. We just do it. And we cross the yard to our building. And what do we find at our building? There's another door like this. This time from the other side. I open it. I ask the child behind me, do you remember what to do? And the child says, yes, I do. And so we walk into the room. Then after the story, it's break time. And we go out again. And again, I open the door. And child after child does that. You know what? From that first day onwards, I never have to explain that again. This is just what we do. We have consideration for each other. And it's not a moral education. I don't explain to the children why it's important to be considerate. We just do it. Because we're on the threshold, we're on the transition between the early years and the grade school. And we're still in this space where it's more powerful to do something than to hear about it. In about 2 or 3 years' time, maybe we come into a different situation where consideration becomes an important issue. And then I might say to the children who are now 10 years old, this is a swinging door moment. And they will understand exactly what I'm talking about. They understand the metaphor. And this happened to me in real. Many times over the next few years, we would have a social situation and a child would say to me, is this a swinging door moment, Mr. Saar? And I would say, yes, it is. This is a moment where we have to be considerate of each other. It's not about self-denial. Of course, I am needed to open the door. But it's not just resilience, it's compassion as well. It's I and you. Good. Let's move on into 2nd grade. I will share a video with you now. This is a video that I took just to document what we were doing first thing in the morning with 8-year-old children. I had taken the decision to develop the children's courage, their balance, their physical confidence. And so we began every day with a kind of obstacle course. And on this particular day, I was taking a film of it because I wanted to document what it was like. And something happened that I was not expecting. So let's have a look at this. It's quite an old film, but you get the idea. So what are we seeing here? Children are stepping over, jumping over, climbing over the desks. Some of them even have little beanbags on their heads to make it more difficult for them, but they're practicing balancing, essentially. They are at a stage of the game where I have already said that we need to stop. But there's a rule before stopping, and the rule is we only stop when the first person says a word. So as long as they do this quietly, we can keep going. And the children quite like the challenge of keeping going until somebody says something. They enjoy the challenge of doing this really quietly. So I'm watching this and now I see this boy here. Can you see the boy on the slide? He loves sliding. So watch him and see what he's doing. In front of him is a large queue of people who also want to slide. But what does he do? He doesn't let them. He blocks the slide because he wants to slide. Look, there's somebody behind him. And what does he do? He goes into the first spot in the queue, and now everybody else is stuck behind him, and off he goes and slides once more. So he's behaving in a really selfish way. But while the other children are clearly gesticulating and are upset, they're not allowed to say anything. Because when they say, Mr. Saar, then everybody has to stop playing. So they now have to balance their wish to carry on with the game with the social responsibility they feel for everybody else in the class. And the boy who is sliding has no idea that he is causing all these difficulties. He doesn't know that he is a very powerful teacher right now, because of him, everybody else has to practice self-denial. This boy was our teacher for 5 years. Because of his own biography, he did not behave like everybody else behaved. He crossed boundaries. He hurt other children. He did not do any of these things because he was morally bad. To some extent, he could not help himself. For all sorts of reasons, he had less self-control than the other children. And the other children had to learn that this is how he functioned. This is a child with less self-control, with more selfishness, and he is our class companion, and somehow we have to manage that. We can't tell him to go away because he belongs to us. And I'm deeply grateful for everything he taught us, although he was very hard work for me as a teacher. But everybody else became better trained in empathy, better trained in compassion because of his presence in the classroom. So we need what I might call diversity. If we are all the same, none of us learn anything on how to behave with other people. Okay? Let's have a look for a moment at how unfair our world is. Some of you may know this little sequence of pictures and slogans. So, what are we seeing here? We're seeing the world as it is. The tree we have that represents all our resources and all our possibilities is not straight. And on one side, there are more fruit than on the other side. And in this particular picture, we have a blue boy and a red boy. And neither of them can pick the fruit because neither of them are tall enough. So both of them are relying on fruit falling off the tree. But it's clear that the boy in the red trousers has an advantage. He was born on the lucky side of the tree. More apples will fall on his side than on the blue side. So while things are not very good for him, they are better than on the other side. So what option does the blue boy have? Well, he could go over to the side where the red boy is. And he could stand next to the red boy, and they could compete for the apples that are falling off the tree. How do you think the red boy will like that? He will say, well, I don't have enough. I don't have agency, so I don't want you here. And the blue boy said, well, you're only lucky to be on that side. And this is what we might call the problem of migration. Yes? If I'm born on the blue side of the tree, of course I have a motivation to go to the red side of the tree. If I'm on the red side of the tree, I have a powerful reason to not want to share. So this is the situation we find ourselves in. The red boy is not particularly happy about his situation. Why? Because he has to wait for things to fall into his lap. He can't do anything about it. But because he's slightly better nourished, he's slightly luckier, maybe he has more resources and he can do something about it. For example, he can make himself a ladder. So now he has a ladder and he can reach the fruit himself. That's already much better. He's now no longer dependent on being lucky. He can have agency. He can go up whenever he needs to and pick the fruit. And the boy on the blue side says, what about me? I want fruit as well. So the boy on the red side might say, okay, we both have the right to a ladder, so you get a ladder too. And the ladder has to have 4 rungs, because that's what my ladder is, so yours can be the same. This is called legislation. Before the law, everybody has to be equal. So if the boy on the left has 4 rungs on his ladder, the boy on the right must also have 4 rungs on his ladder, so that we are treated equally before the law, for example. But you can see that the blue boy's problem has not changed at all. He still can't reach the apples, and there are still fewer apples on his side. So who can solve the blue boy's problem? Only the red boy can. The blue boy can't do anything about it. He's under-resourced. Everything now depends on the red boy's attitude. Does the red boy manage to go the next steps? Look at him. He can pick as many fruit as he likes. He can pick more fruit than he needs, for example, and create a surplus in his own world. And maybe he can use that surplus, he can sell some of the fruit to buy the blue boy a bigger ladder. Let's see what happens when that happens. Oh yes, wonderful. Now both the boys can reach the fruit. The red boy has paid for a bigger ladder for the blue boy, and he doesn't mind very much. So now everybody's happy, right? We call this diversity hire policies. I don't know to what extent this is practiced in Thai or Khmer society, but in Europe this is a big deal. And it applies, for example, to the societal situation of women. In Europe, there is a law that if 2 people apply for the same job, and one of those 2 people is a woman, then the woman must be given precedence if her qualifications are the same. Yeah? If the only difference between 2 applicants for a position is their sex, then the woman must be preferred. That's the law in the European Union. And the men might say, well, that's not fair. But because the women for thousands of years were in the blue boys situation, yeah, they had to be given an extra few rungs of the ladder to be able to reach the tree, to be able to reach the fruit. The same applied to people of ethnic diversity in the United States and in other places as well. So you're familiar with the idea. Do you think we've solved the problem at this point? Or is there another picture? Think about it. We still have the situation that the boy on the left has access to far more fruit than the boy on the right. And if you really know anything about growing fruit, then please forgive me, because what I'm about to say is not biologically true. But the real problem is that the tree is not straight. If the tree was straight and it had the same amount of fruit growing on both sides, we would have what might be called justice. And if we have justice, we no longer need a taller ladder. If the system is no longer unequal, both of those boys can manage with the same ladder. But we're not there yet. Do we want to get to that place where real justice is possible, where women's rights, black people's rights, foreigners' rights are equal to those of the majority? Do we want to get to a place where that really matters, where that makes the difference? Because at the moment it doesn't. If you look at United Nations documents, the Declaration of Human Rights, for example, you will find that by law, by universal law, women have the same rights as men. But in countries like Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia, in reality, that law means nothing to the women in those countries. They can't use those laws to improve their status. So it's not the fault of the women in those societies that they don't ask for more rights. The system itself has to change, and then the equal rights laws will have a meaning. At the moment, they don't yet. So what needs to happen is what you might call systematic change, structural change. That will be a precondition for justice. And who should manage to change the system? Well, I think this is down to education. When Rudolf Steiner founded Waldorf Education, began the first Waldorf school, it was not just done so that children have a slightly nicer education in school. It was done with the explicit purpose of changing society and making it more just, more equitable, you could say. Let's have a look how Rudolf Steiner himself expressed himself. And I would like to apologize. The fact that there is no Thai translation on this slide is my fault. Nu has been wonderful in providing the translation, but I gave her this slide too late. But she can translate from the English and you can just hear what the words are saying. So this is something that Rudolf Steiner said to the teachers of the Waldorf school. We would like the parents of the Waldorf school children to say, we are especially aware of our duty to educate human beings, and we would like to have our children make a contribution to humanity's great tasks in the 20th century. We want entrusting our children to the Waldorf school to be a social act of some consequence. And then he says to the teachers, the more strongly this becomes a part of your whole attitude, the better. So the fact that my child is in the Waldorf school should be a social act of some consequence. So will my child repeat my mistakes? Or will they have the confidence, the skills, the motivation to be part of a change for the better? Do I enable them to do that? This is where I want to break for the second and final time to encourage you to have a conversation. And this one is a bit more complex. I would like you to follow me in this in what was probably one of the worst conflicts of the 20th century. Much, much worse than what you are experiencing at the moment in Thailand and Cambodia. And this was the way that German people treated Jewish people when Germany was run by the Nazi Party, before and during the Second World War. The Jews were in the minority in Germany. They were a very large minority. There were about 8 or 9 million Jews in Central Europe. So a large group of people, but not as many as the non-Jews. And Nazi ideology declared Jewish life to be worth less than non-Jewish life. And we all know the consequences of what happened as a result. We heard about the Holocaust. After the Holocaust, When Germany was defeated and had to relearn about human values, many Germans said, I was part of this, but it wasn't my fault. I only followed orders. I did what I was told to do. One of the Jewish people who fled Germany when she still could, was the philosopher Hannah Arendt. She emigrated to the United States and she became a lecturer of philosophy at several US universities, and she wrote a very important book about how Germans were part of the system that was responsible for killing Jews. And she said, the argument, I was only following orders, is missing something very crucial. It's missing compassion. It's just looking at the rights. It's a bit like the white racist woman in the tube. And she formulated this very provocative sentence. Nobody has the right to obey. It's not a human right to obey orders, she says. Not if those orders result in the death and suffering of other people. I think it's one of the most important sentences of the 20th century. And I would like you to have a conversation about this. And please feel free to use this to talk about your feelings and ideas about the conflict between Thai and Khmer. I don't know the details of this. I can't make any statement about what you are going through right now. I have never lived in a country that was at war with its neighbor. But many of you who are in Thailand live next to Khmer people, work with Khmer people. They are a minority in Thailand right now. Do you, as the majority, feel a responsibility to defend them against discrimination? Do you have the right to do that? Should you? So take Hannah Arendt's sentence. If bad things are happening, do I have the right to feel forced to be a part of this? We're going to take 10 to 15 minutes, maybe let's say 12 minutes for a conversation. And these are the thoughts I would like you to be inspired by. But you don't have, there's no task. I'd like you to just maybe have a conversation about your situation with this in mind. Thank you.
อันนี้อยู่ในกลุ่มหรือว่าถูกดึงเข้ามากลุ่มใหญ่แล้วคะ
นี่อ
So
ยู่กลุ่มใหญ่
welcome
แล้ว
back.
ค่ะ
อ๋อ
Maybe, does anybody need a reminder about the language, the interpretation, or can we carry on? Is that okay? Good. So thank you very much for this. I hope this conversation has helped in sensitizing you to understanding that this isn't a field of easy answers. A lot of the damage that we do in the world happens because we think that we are right and that everybody else has to agree that we are right. I could imagine the argument between Audre Lorde's mother and the white racist lady going on for hours because each of them thinks that they are right. And the only way forward is if the racist white lady really understands what her attitude has done to Audrey and takes this as an opportunity to examine her own way of being. Maybe her opinions will change as well, but that in fact is secondary. It is possible for modern human beings to have an opinion and to act against that opinion for the benefit of others. Maybe this is one of the few things that are much easier now than they ever used to be. Hundreds of years ago, we were so used to doing things the way they had always been. Now, with the increased freedom in our lives, in the way that we can act, it also gives us the freedom to act on behalf of other people. And this is new in the world. I want to now tell you two stories. One is fictional, the other is real. The fictional story has had a huge impact on the politics and education in the 20th century. It is based on a book which is 70 years old now, and it was the first novel of a young writer called William Golding. The book is called Lord of the Flies. William Golding, as a young man, was a teacher. In fact, you may not know this, he was a Waldorf teacher for 2 years. From 1935 to 1937, he taught at the same school where I taught in England. It's called Michael Hall, and it's the longest continuously operating Waldorf school in the world. So why did William Golding only last for 2 years in that school? Nobody remembers him, of course, it's too long ago. But he did struggle with alcoholism. He did struggle with his personal demons and with depression. And I don't think he liked people very much. So in 1954, he decided to write a book about how boys would really behave in an extraordinary situation. And mostly for this book, this depressed, angry man was given the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1983. Some of you may have read this book. It is about a group of boys, all of them between 9 and 13 years old, who are shipwrecked or whose plane crashes on a deserted island. And they decide to live on that island, and they have only 3 rules. Rule 1, have fun. Rule 2, survive. Rule 3, keep the fire burning. Very quickly, the boys' behavior towards each other becomes aggressive, suspicious, and demanding. And within a few months, they are rescued. But when the rescuers come, they find that 3 boys are dead. They have killed each other. Everything has descended into tragedy and chaos. And the message of the book is that people can't be trusted without firm rules. The rules that those boys gave themselves clearly were not enough, the implication is. Because people without rules will kill each other. People are bad, selfish, anxious, violent. And when this book was published in the middle of the 1950s, all the evidence seemed to suggest that this was true. Because what I just told you, the story of the Holocaust, in a world where people can do that to other people, surely there is no hope for goodness and hope for change even. So autocratic governments in the entire world were encouraged by this book. Dictators all over the world said, we have to force you to do this because if we don't force you, you will kill each other. Schools in all the world followed that narrative as well. We have to teach children to obey the rules because if they don't obey, they will become aggressive and violent. And remember, this book is a fictional book, but it is still on the syllabus for English literature in all the English-speaking countries in the world. It's considered that important. In 2019, a second book was published by a very different author, and I will speak more about him in a moment. He asked himself this question: that fictional story of the Lord of the Flies doesn't sound very unlikely. Surely, somewhere time in the history of the world, some teenage boys must have been shipwrecked on a desert island. I wonder what happened in real life. And he found out that it did happen. It happened in 1965. 6 boys who were pupils in a boarding school in Tonga in the Pacific decided to run away from school and go by sailing boat to Fiji, 500 miles away. Those boys were 15 years old. They were completely unprepared, had no idea what they were doing, no map, no compass. And they came into a storm. Their ship was broken, and they ended up on an island just like the boys in the story. So these boys had to arrange their lives now. And they decided that they would organize themselves into teams of 2. If people had an argument, the arrangement was that there would be a timeout. Each of the arguing boys would go to the other end of the island and would have to stay there for 4 hours and then come back and apologize to each other. And that worked. They had food gardens. They hollowed out trees to collect rainwater because there was no running water on the island. They kept a fire going. They even made a guitar from some broken strings from the broken boat and some shells and wood. Their days began with prayer and with singing. And they were rescued after 15 months by a fisherman who had heard of their disappearance and systematically looked for them on lonely islands. And he found them in September 1966. All 6 of them were healthy, very muscular. They were friends. And when he realized how friendly they were with each other, he said to them, "How about you come and work for me?" So those 6 boys didn't have to go back to school. They became the crew on a fishing boat that he owned. And you know what? Most of them are still alive now. and they are still friends. Now, I know it's only one story, but anybody who teaches the Lord of the Flies in literature, I think, should also tell this story. That in real life, people did want to get on. They did not want to fight. They understood that they might, and so they prepared themselves for that. Let me share something with you. Imagine that you are teaching a group of maybe 13 to 18-year-old students, high school pupils. I would suggest that you could do the following exercise with them. You could organize them into groups and ask them to imagine that they have been shipwrecked on a deserted island. Ask them, what are you talking about around the fire at night? What needs will you have? What will your needs be on the first night? What will your needs be on the third night? What about after a week? What about after several months? So you could tell them the story before or not, but ask them to imagine their needs. And then, after 10 or 15 minutes, ask them to share. What do they agree on? Which are the primary needs that have to be satisfied, and how does it build up? And then you can show them one of the fundamental psychological tools of the 20th century. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's often displayed in form of a pyramid. Many of you who've studied psychology at school or at university will be very familiar with this. So Maslow in 1943 divided the human needs into 5 categories. The very primary one he called the physiological needs. Do I have air to breathe? Do I have food to eat? Can I keep my body alive? At the second level, do I feel safe? Do I have shelter? Can I defend myself? Do I have people around me who will defend me? Can I stay healthy? At the third level, my emotional needs. Do I feel seen? Do I have people I can talk to who will listen to me? The fourth level, self-esteem. How confident am I in my own ability to make decisions, to run my life? And I'm going to stop here for a moment before I come to the fifth one. Because Maslow makes a difference between these 4 and the fifth one that sits at the top of the pyramid. He says, these 4 have to be met, at least in part, so that the fifth one can become a reality. They don't have to be filled 100%. I don't have to be 100% healthy or 100% happy. But I have to be at least a little bit healthy and a little bit happy and a little bit safe. And then I can go to the fifth level a little bit. Maslow calls it self-actualization. And here is where I am creative, where I can make moral decisions that involve right or wrong, that don't follow self-interest, where I can create art or literature, or foster new ideas for being with my friends and enemies. So, in other words, this green point of the pyramid is where I'm actually free. Free from following my own basic needs. But what Maslow added in 1954 to a later edition of his book is a really important law that he added to this. The law is what a person can be, they must be. What does that mean? Well, every person in the world has an aim. We want to be creative, to be moral, to make a difference to other people. And if we can't do that, we can't really be truly happy. That's what the word must means here. Yeah. I know what my potential is, and if I can't get to realizing it, I will not be happy and satisfied. But in order to be able to get there, I must have those basic 4 needs fulfilled, at least partly. And this is why I'm so urgent in appealing to you, to everybody else, that what we need is not just kindness, is not just niceness. It's not just a slogan like, make love, not war. It's also achieving justice. Simply being kind isn't enough. We also have to work towards systematic change. And then we have the ability to guarantee those 4 levels of security. So I said I would come back to the author of this book. And here is the title of the book. And I would strongly recommend that you read this book, because if you're a little bit skeptical about anything that I have just shared with you, this book will change your life. I am already quite an optimistic person, and I still felt much happier after reading the book than before. Rutger Bregman is a young Dutch author, and he wrote this book because he believes that people are good. And he believes that there are many stories in the history of the world, all the way back to the Stone Age, that prove that people don't want to be violent. They don't want to have conflict and quarrel. They want to get on. So before I tell you one more true story, I want to tell you one of his beautiful reinterpretations of human evolution. Many of you will have heard of Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. In English, that theory is called the survival of the fittest. And most of us have learned at school that the strongest people have the best chance of survival. Bregman tells us in his book that that's not actually true, because several tens of thousands of years ago, there lived a species of human called the Neanderthal man. And the Neanderthal man had a bigger brain, bigger muscles, and was taller than Homo sapiens. But they didn't make it. Homo sapiens was the species of human that survived, that was successful in evolution. And Rutger Bregman says that proves that it's not about how strong I am, but how social I can be. Neanderthals were solitary creatures. They were fighting everybody and winning all their fights. But when it came to shelter, to family, to having those 4 basic needs met, they were at a disadvantage because people were frightened of them, did not like them. Homo sapiens was good at being social. Bregman retranslates the struggle for survival into the snuggle for survival. He says, survival of the fittest means those who fit in with others are the successful ones. He says, the Neanderthal is a MacBook. Homo sapiens is a Windows 95 computer but with internet. It's all about how we connect. And because, as he says, humans are essentially kind, if we give them the chance to be kind, that will always win, will always be successful. So now I'm going to tell you about the Pygmalion effect. For you as educators, this is a very powerful message. In 1963, there was a psychologist called Bob Rosenthal who worked at Harvard University. He put rats in two separate cages. One cage was labeled, "These rats have been particularly bred to be highly intelligent specimens." The other cage contains ordinary rats. He then gave these rats to his students and asked them to do the maze experiment with each of the rat populations. The maze experiment means that each rat gets put into a labyrinth, and then they have to find their way out of the labyrinth, and the time they take for that is recorded. It's a classic experiment to determine intelligence in animals. To Rosenthal's surprise, the rats that had been labeled as specially intelligent were twice as successful as the other ones. Why was he surprised? Because the rats in both cages were identical. The label was wrong. The students did not know this. The students assumed one group of rats to be cleverer, and those rats were quicker in the labyrinth. So what had happened was that Rosenthal found out that the students treated those rats more warmly, more gently, with more encouragement. And those rats responded by actually being better at their task. They repeated this several times, and then they wrote about it in a journal. And the headmaster of a school in San Francisco read that article and wrote to Bob Rosenthal and said, "Do you think this would work with human beings as well?" And Rosenthal said, "I don't know. Let's find out." So in 1965, in an elementary school in San Francisco, the teachers were told that Bob Rosenthal had administered to their pupils a new kind of test. They called it an inflected acquisition test. And the idea was to establish the pupil's potential for progress. In reality, it was a completely ordinary IQ test. But the teachers didn't know that, and the pupils didn't know that. Once every pupil's IQ had been established in this way, the researchers flipped a coin to randomly assign some of the pupils, 20%, into a group that had, they said, special ability to make particularly good progress that year. And the teachers were told about this group of pupils. The pupils were not told. The teachers were told these 20% of pupils, according to this new test, have special potential. Then the year just progressed, as it ordinarily does. At the end of the year, all the pupils were given the IQ test once more, the same one. And what happened? You can guess. Inevitably and without exception, the IQ score of the pupils who had been in that privileged group went up. The average was 27 points. Now, if you know anything about IQ tests, you realize this is a huge leap. Yeah, this is a leap from average to specially gifted, 27 points. It was a massive thing for in psychology. And it changed, it should have changed the way we will deal with children much more than the Lord of the Flies. Because what was the message? The way the pupil feels about themselves has to do with the way the teachers feel about the pupil. Yeah? Any one of those pupils could have been chosen to be in that random group. And they would have responded with being happier, more relaxed, and crucially, more successful. So Pygmalion is a Greek myth in which a sculptor falls in love with his sculpture and his creature, you could say. But the important message, I think, for us as educators is, of course, that if we make the pupils feel that we love them, that we are interested, that they're special for us, they will respond, even if they don't know that. They will feel special. So, how can we do that? We are coming to the last 15 minutes of our seminar, so I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. One of the ways of doing that is by arranging our processes to reflect the pupil's well-being and not the right and wrong. What I've outlined here is called the no-blame approach to bullying. It was developed in the United Kingdom in 1995. And the steps after a bullying incident are designed to protect the victim and to help the victim feel better, not to punish the person who has done the deed. But they involve the perpetrator in making the victim feel better. So after we found out what happened, we create a support group. And the people who are the perpetrators are part of that support group. We just invite them in to the circle. And we say, now our friend feels bad. What do you think we can do to help them feel better? We let the pupils make suggestions, and then we let them act on those suggestions. And then we follow up. At no point is there any blame involved. And I just want to give you one example of how this could work. I'm a mentor to a school in India, and the second grade teacher of that school told me a story yesterday. She said that she had made a pedagogical mistake. I'm just going to take this slide away so that you can follow it better. She took a very gifted pupil's book and held it up in front of the classroom. And she said, look how beautiful this pupil has worked. I'd love you all to work like this. The next day, when that pupil found her book, somebody had cut out those pages and they were disappeared. And of course, this pupil was very upset to have lost her pages like this. So in the no blame approach, we would now make a support group and we would focus on what can we do to restore those pages to this child. Maybe they're gone forever, and maybe some children will say, well, I could write it down for her, what has gone missing. If we help the innocent victim of this, it's a completely different gesture than if we try to find and punish the culprits. Imagine that you could also do, I want to know who did this. The whole class will not go out for break time until I find out who did this. And when I find out who did this, I will ban you from school for 3 days. You can hear that traditional teacher's voice, can't you? Who is focused on right and wrong. But will anybody learn something from this? And most importantly, will it benefit the victim if we focus on punishment? Or isn't the most important thing in this that the poor child who had her work destroyed should feel better? Isn't that more important than retribution and consequences in this case. So let's bring this back, because I want to give you a few more examples of how we can work towards peace. This is a really important element. What you're seeing here is what, by now, a fairly standard Waldorf school classroom looks like in Central Europe. There are desks, but they're folded up on the wall. There's a blackboard, but you don't see it at the moment. The most important thing is that the pupils and the teacher together are sitting in a circle. This is the default shape of the class. So we no longer have a classroom environment where every pupil sits by themselves and faces the teacher. We have a circle where everybody is valued equally and where the teacher becomes the guide. In this diagram, the content of the lesson is in the center. This could be a science experiment, but it could also be just something we talk about. And importantly, every one of these children has equal access to it. If we need to copy something from the blackboard, we can change the desks. But most of the time in the classroom, the important thing is that we share the learning experience. And every Friday, we sit in this circle and we ask ourselves, how was this week? Is everybody happy? Is somebody maybe unhappy? And let's say somebody says, I'm unhappy. Okay, so let's call this child Peter. Peter, tell us what you're unhappy about. And Peter says, I'm very unhappy about Sophia because Sophia always pushes herself in front of me. And I think it's really unfair when we line up for lunch that she always pushes in. And then as a teacher, I would say, Peter, can you say that to Sophia, please, directly? Because we don't talk about each other, we talk to each other in the circle. So Peter now has to find the courage to say, to look at Sophia into this face and say, I'm not happy that you always push in. And of course, Sophia wants to defend herself, but she has to wait until it's her turn. Because in this circle, we work with talking sticks. And only the people who hold the talking sticks are allowed to speak. So we establish this way of communicating right from first grade so that we have a safe space in which to talk with each other and to resolve conflicts. Remember when I said at the beginning of my talk that a world without fear is an illusion? A world without conflict is also an illusion. It's no good giving children empty hopes that they will live in paradise one day. It's not like that. We are on the earth. People will argue. The question is, how do we argue? And I want to share 2 or 3 pictures with you now of examples of that. I don't know if you have ever heard of this, but imagine that there's a village, and in the center of the village, there's a tree. Can you imagine a rule where if 2 people have an argument, they have to go and each of them has to touch the tree with one hand. And then they have to talk about their disagreement. And while they have one hand on the tree, they're not allowed to fight. They can argue, but they're not allowed to fight. And both of them know that of each other. Also, while they touch the tree, nobody is allowed to disturb them because everybody can see these people are working out a conflict. Yeah. So in that culture, in that situation, it becomes a figure of speech. If 2 people have an argument, they say, let's go and touch the tree. Because it's a safe space where I can tell you what I think and you can tell me what you think. And we're close to each other, but we won't hurt each other. The same teacher I was just quoting from India just now told me another thing that she does. And her children had that idea. Sometimes in the circle, 2 children will keep dominating with their argument. And so the children themselves had the idea, teacher, can we make a conversation corner in the classroom where we talk about these things. And the teacher said, what a good idea. And so the children created a conversation corner where there's a little, out of wood, they made a little stand, and in the corner there are 2 chairs. And when 2 children have something important to talk about, they go and sit on those 2 chairs. And it's now become, already with these 8-year-old children, a thing that they say, shall we go and talk about that in the conversation corner? And I love that they have themselves seen their ability to create a space for themselves. Remember earlier on when I put this diagram and in the middle it said confidence. They have the confidence to address their conflict. Might not solve the conflict, but they address it. And the third thing I want to share with you as a tool is what I used to call the tummy ache chair. Right from class 1, if a child is not well, if a child is sad or anxious or lonely, they can go and sit in this comfortable chair. And then the other children will know they need a bit of time. Maybe also they need a bit of care. So you can go to them and say, can I do something for you? But if somebody sits in the tummy ache chair, they're basically sending the message, I'm in a vulnerable place. I don't explain it like that to children, by the way. And most children don't literally have a tummy ache. But if you've ever worked with 6 or 7-year-old children, they don't come to you and say, teacher, I am feeling a bit anxious. They will say, teacher, I have a tummy ache. Yeah, that's their language. And so we give them this chair to sit in. And of course, what happens is it's part of our emotional vocabulary now. I'm in a world where I can show that I'm not strong right now. And other children can see that, and I'm okay with it. So it really creates a culture between us that shows that we are accepting and giving each other space. I realize that I'm running out of time just a little bit, so I'm going to skip a couple of things. I hope that's okay with you. And I just want to very briefly refer to this question of tolerance. I don't know about you individually. Some of you are Thai, some of you are Khmer, some of you are neither Thai or Khmer. But maybe even the most peaceful among you will have this idea that it's okay as long as I am tolerant of the people who are not like me. And I would like to plant the idea in your mind that tolerance is not enough. Because when I speak about tolerance, I'm referring to a state of mind that means I don't really like you, but I can tolerate you. So let's say that I'm talking to you and your breath smells really badly. Yeah? But I want to get on with you, so I tolerate your bad smell. That's not how I want to relate to other people, is it? And from tolerance, it's only one step to disliking you. And if I dislike you, it's only one step to have a prejudice about you and people who are like you. And from prejudice, it's only one step to discriminate against you. And say, well, if you're like that, you must have fewer rights than me. And from that, it's only one step to actually hate you. Remember what I said earlier on about Nazi Germany and the Jews? It started with people saying we have to tolerate the Jews in our society. And very quickly, they went down and down and down those stairs. But there's another side to the same dynamic. We can also turn this table around. We start with tolerance and we move up the steps instead of down. And we say, I not only tolerate you, I accept you. You can be however you want to be. You can be a trans person. a gay person, a person with a disability, or with a very loud voice, or a person who comes a bit too close, a person who gets in the way when I want to slide down the slide, but I accept you. And from there, it's only one step up to trying to find out that maybe your life isn't as easy as mine. Maybe I can respect you for your courage in being you. And from there, it's only one step to try and understand you, and maybe to ask you to understand me as well. We begin to communicate as equals. And from there, once we're there, it's only one step to genuinely celebrating a culture of diversity. Because you see, as long as I'm still with tolerance, I am still in a normative culture. I am still saying, well, I'm normal and you're not, but I tolerate you. In a culture of diversity, I not only tolerate you, but I want you to be different from me. I need you to be different, because only through your difference do you make me grow. It's not easy necessarily. After all, these stairs go up, not down. It's harder to go up the stairs. But one step at a time, it's not that hard after all. And then we end up maybe in this place, which in modern psychological parlance is called resonance. I am surrounded by diversity, by people who are different from me, but I have the confidence to sing my song to them. Can you hear me, everybody? I have a song to sing. And I like my song. I like myself. Please hear me. And at the same time, parallel to that, I have everybody else's song in my heart too. And it fills me from the inside. So you have the right to be confident about your resilience and your compassion at the same time as me. So for me, this is the route towards peace in education, to try and create a space through lots and lots of exercises and activities where I end up with a place where I feel confident to sing to the world, and I feel open enough to allow the world to sing in me. I am very grateful to the Threefold Academy for giving me the opportunity to speak to you like this. I'm very grateful for Nunarin to do the interpretation, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Peace be with you.
เคขอบคุณครูค่ะ แต่ว่ามีคำถามนะคะใช่ไหม
Yes? Yes?
มีคำถามไหมคะไม่แน่ใจเมื่อกี้เห็นแวบ
Is it the question about the no blame process of the bullying?
ๆมอ
ส
งไม่
งสัยว่า
ค่อย
กระบวน
เห็นนะ
การในการแก้ไข
Yes.
ปัญหาเรื่องการกลั่นแกล้งกันทำไมถึงไม่รวมเจ้าทุกข์มาไว้ด้วย
Yes.
ครับ
Thank you. I would say that the victim can be included if they want to be. So it depends a little bit on the age of the children, but it also depends on how vulnerable the victim feels right now. You're right to ask this question, because it's very powerful if I can have the children in the circle and this child says to the others how they feel. But in my experience, maybe only 1 out of 5 children feel strong enough to do that. And if they don't, then I have to be their voice. I have to be their advocate. Yeah, but thank you for asking that question. It's very justified.
โอเค
ค
ข
รั
อบคุ
บ
ณมากค่ะตอนเป็น ก็คงไม่มีคำถามแล้วเนาะ ก็ตอนนี้3 ทุ่มกว่าแล้ว โอเคนะคะ ก็ขอปิดการอบรมครั้งนี้ ต้องขอบคุณคุณครูมาก ครูสเวนมีอะไรให้เราคิดมากมายเลย ได้ไตร่ตรองเยอะมากนะคะ ก็เราจะมีเทปบันทึกเอาไว้ให้สำหรับผู้ที่จะได้ทบทวนในวันหลังอีกนะคะ ทีนี้ในนามของ Threefold Academy และอ่าเราก็ขอขอบคุณทุกท่านที่มาร่วมสัมมนาในวันนี้นะคะ แล้วก็ขอบคุณทีมงานของเราเป็นพิเศษ แม่แซงที่ดูแลงานธุรการนะคะ ครูบูมผู้สนับสนุนด้านเทคนิค แล้วก็ขอบคุณหนูมากเลยที่เป็นล่ามที่น่ารักมากของเราช่วยทุกอย่าง ถึงอย่างไรโลกใบนี้ก็ยังมีความหวังอยู่อะค่ะ เพราะว่าถึงแม้จะมีความขัดแย้งมีการต่อสู้ แต่สิ่งที่เราได้ฟังจากครูแล้ว เราก็เห็นขั้นตอนต่างๆอย่างชัดเจน แล้วก็คงต้องได้ใคร่ครวญนะคะ แล้วมันก็ทำให้เข้าใจบทกวีอันนึงที่ครูสเวนยกมาให้เราฟังอะค่ะ คือของคุณมาเรียนวิลเลียมสันที่กล่าวว่า as we let our own light shine we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same นะคะมัน ขอบคุณค่ะ แล้วก็ด้วยความซาบซึ้งใจในบทกวีอันนี้กับสิ่งที่ได้ฟังวันนี้นะคะ จากคุณครูสเวน มันเป็นทั้งปัญญาและมุมมองอันลึกซึ้ง ต้องขอบคุณมาก ๆ เลยค่ะ แล้วก็ส่งพวกเราเข้านอนกันทุกคนด้วยวันนี้ ขอบคุณมาก ๆ นะคะ
ครับ
ขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณผู้จัด ขอบคุณคุณครูสเวนค่ะ ราตรีสวัสดิ์ค่ะ